In a small village nestled between two towering mountains, there lived two brothers, Aiden and Liam. Aiden, the older brother, was known for his bravery and strength, while Liam, the younger, was recognized for his kindness and intelligence. The two were inseparable, always exploring the dense forests, climbing the rugged mountains, or helping their parents on their family farm. Despite their differences, the brothers shared an unbreakable bond and would do anything for each other. One crisp autumn afternoon, Aiden and Liam decided to gather firewood in the forest near their home. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor. They joked and laughed as they worked, enjoying each other's company. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed through the mountains. Aiden stopped, his face turning serious. "Liam, did you hear that?" he asked, glancing towards the towering peaks above them. Liam nodded, a sense of unease washing over him. "It sounded like it came from the mountain," he replied, his eyes wide with concern. Before they could react, the ground beneath them began to shake. Trees swayed, and a low, ominous roar filled the air. The brothers looked up in horror to see a massive landslide barreling down the mountainside. A torrent of rocks, dirt, and debris headed straight for their village. "We have to warn everyone," Aiden shouted, grabbing Liam's hand and pulling him towards the village. They sprinted through the forest, dodging trees and leaping over fallen branches as the rumble grew louder and the ground shook more violently. As they reached the outskirts of the village, Aiden glanced back and saw the landslide gaining speed. His heart pounded as he realized they didn't have much time. "Liam, go warn the villagers. I'll try to slow it down." Liam hesitated for a moment, fear gripping his heart. He didn't want to leave his brother, but he knew Aiden was right. The villagers needed to be warned. With a nod, Liam turned and ran towards the village, shouting at the top of his lungs, "A landslide is coming. Everyone, get to safety." The villagers looked up in shock and panic at Liam's warning. They quickly sprang into action, grabbing their children and belongings and fleeing toward higher ground. Liam ran from house to house, banging on doors and urging everyone to leave. Meanwhile, Aiden sprinted up the slope towards a cluster of trees that stood in the path of the oncoming landslide. He knew he couldn't stop it, but maybe he could slow it down and buy the villagers some time. With all his strength, Aiden began pushing and shoving at the trees, trying to create a makeshift barrier. His muscles ached, and his breath came in ragged gasps, but he kept pushing, driven by the thought of protecting his family and friends below. Back in the village, Liam had managed to alert most of the villagers, but there were still a few who hadn't heard his warning. He raced through the streets, his heart pounding with fear for his brother. He knew Aiden was up on the mountain, risking his life to protect them all, and he couldn't bear the thought of losing him. As Liam reached the last house, he banged on the door, shouting, "Mrs. Thompson, you have to get out. A landslide is coming." The door opened to reveal an elderly woman with a worried expression. "Oh dear, a landslide," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with fear. "I didn't hear anything." "There's no time to explain," Liam urged, grabbing her hand and helping her out of the house. "We have to go, now." With Mrs. Thompson in tow, Liam sprinted toward the hill where the other villagers had gathered. As they reached the top, he turned back and scanned the mountainside, searching for any sign of Aiden. His heart sank when he realized he couldn't see his brother anywhere. "Aiden," he shouted, his voice breaking with panic. "Aiden, where are you?" At that moment, a loud crash echoed through the air as the landslide slammed into the barrier Aiden had created. The force of the impact was immense, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if the barrier might hold. But then, with a deafening roar, the barrier collapsed, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. Liam watched in horror as the landslide continued its relentless descent toward the village. His eyes darted frantically across the mountainside, searching for any sign of his brother. Just when he was about to lose hope, he spotted a figure stumbling down the slope, covered in dirt and debris but unmistakably Aiden. Without a second thought, Liam raced down the hill, his heart pounding in his chest. "Aiden," he shouted, tears streaming down his face. Aiden looked up, his face bruised and battered but filled with relief at the sight of his brother. "Liam," he called out, his voice weak but filled with determination. "I'm okay, but we need to move fast." Liam reached Aiden and helped him to his feet, supporting his weight as they scrambled down the slope. The ground continued to tremble beneath them, and rocks and debris rained down from above, but they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that they had to get to safety. As they reached the bottom of the slope, the villagers rushed forward to help them. Aiden and Liam were both exhausted, their bodies bruised and battered, but they were alive. The villagers cheered and embraced them, grateful for their bravery and quick thinking. Despite the chaos and destruction, the brothers couldn't help but smile at each other, their bond stronger than ever. They had faced a terrifying ordeal, but they had done it together, and that was all that mattered. In the days that followed, the village began to rebuild, and Aiden and Liam became heroes in the eyes of their community. But to them, they were just two brothers who had each other's backs, no matter what. They knew that as long as they stood together, they could overcome any challenge that came their way.